right, friends, welcome to another episode of The Rebels Show. We're going strong. You know, there's a big topic out in the world today, and it's called the wall. What do you guys think of the wall? Build the wall, don't build the wall. Is it immoral? Is it moral? You know, it's all up to an opinion. But let's break down walls for a little bit, you know? Is a border wall good for America? You know, you have a lot of drugs, crime, you have a lot of stuff going on, and a barrier would slow the flow down. That's like what a dam does, is it slows the water down. And there's many uses for a wall that we see every day. You know, a lot of Republicans and Democrats said that we need border security. I don't know if they believed what they said because a lot of them are changing their minds now. So you can't always trust Republicans and Democrats. But I would think, you know, they live in gated and walled communities along with like a lot of celebrities and athletes and politicians, you know. I've noticed in different jobs I've done that military bases sometimes have walls or fences. Interesting, you know. I've seen pictures of the Facebook facility is surrounded by a giant wall, you know, because Facebook has all your information already, so they don't want anyone to break in and steal it. So what about prisons? You know, prisons have walls. And I would guess if they didn't, a lot of the prisoners would just run away, right? So you can use walls to keep people in, to keep people out, or to separate things. You know, around the holidays, they have those popcorn tins, and they have that insert in the middle of them to separate the different flavors of popcorn. So walls can be used to separate things too. And walls are built to funnel people to a gate. That's kind of the idea of Trump's wall, is to funnel people to where they can enter the country and get the proper paperwork and do it the way the law says. It's not like this is Trump's idea. This is just the law that's already written. He's just trying to enforce what's already there. If we don't like it, we should change that, you know? So walls are good, you know? There's a fence around my backyard. Why? Keep things separate, you know? I don't want the neighbor dog pooping in my yard, or I don't want my daughter running into their yard, you know? So we build things to contain, in a way. You know, we have a gate at the top of our steps, so my daughter doesn't run or fall down the stairs if we don't want her to, you know? Of course, we don't want her to fall, but you know my point. So we have the Great Wall of China. It's built along the east and west line across the historical northern borders of China to protect the Chinese states and empires against the raids and invasions of various nomadic groups. I'm going to butcher this word, I think, of the Eurasian steppe, with an eye to expand. So other nations around wanted to expand. They wanted to take over areas that China held, and they built the Great Wall to stop the raids and invasions of these people. That's a pretty good reason to build a wall, to stop invasions. Wow. You know, apart from defense, the other purposes of the wall included border controls, allowing goods to pass through along the Silk Road, regulation and encouragement of trade, and the control of immigration and migration. So they didn't want people just coming in without knowing who they were. They wanted to be able to control them, lead them to a gate where they could come in. Sounds interesting. Trump's ideas don't seem very original, do they? These are things through history. We can look at Israel's walls in Jerusalem, you know, or Israel considers it a security barrier against terrorism, while the Palestinians call it a racial segregation, or I can't read that word, so I'm not gonna. It's racial segregation to the Palestinians, but to Israel, it's like, hey, we need to keep you people out because you're terrorists. You know, we can get into the Israeli-Palestinian talk later, but you know, construction began during the intensified Israeli-Palestinian violence in September of 2000. It was defended by the Israeli government as a necessity to stop a wave of violence inside Israel that the uprising had brought with it. And I know it's helped a lot. You know, the violence in that region is less because of these type of things, because they built the barriers. You know, the Israeli government said that the barrier has been effective as the number of suicide bombings carried out from the West Bank fell from 73 between 2000 and July 2003 to 12 from August 2003 to 2006. So from 73 suicide bombings to 12 because of a wall. So you can control people with walls. You can stop them from entering your country illegally with walls, and you can separate your popcorn with them. Think of Jerusalem, in Nehemiah chapters 1 and 2, Nehemiah, he had heard that in Jerusalem, the walls and the city had been kind of broken down, and it was getting a pretty bad erosion and becoming basically ruins in a sense, So he hears about this and he is troubled. And, Nehemiah was the cupbearer for the king, so he basically had to taste the wine before the king and eat the food before the wine, before the king, just to make sure that it wasn't poison. And so they have a pretty good relationship, I would think. It's someone that they get along. And the king notices that Nehemiah is not in a very good mood. He's not as happy. Nehemiah followed the Lord, and Nehemiah had the joy of the Lord, and Nehemiah had a relationship with God. So he was probably in a good mood a lot of the time. And when the king notices that he's different, he asks, what's wrong? And Nehemiah basically goes, hey, man, my home city, the walls are broken down, the gates have been burned, the city's been pillaged, and it breaks my heart. I really want to go rebuild my city and rebuild the walls and put up new gates and everything. And he asks the king if he can do this. And this is an interesting thing here, is he's under other leadership, and the king agrees to let him go rebuild the walls and even funds their building. And he tells him, hey, we're going to send out the best logs. We're going to go mine the best ores and stuff. We're going to go get the best rock to rebuild the cities of Jerusalem because it's important to you. I mean, that's amazing for another king of another country to look at this and go, wow, I want to be a part of this. Let's continue. Joshua 6:1. Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. Jericho is a city that had giant impenetrable walls, impossible to get in and out, except through the specific gate. It says they were impenetrable. So walls that were so strong, if you are familiar with the story, that God had to intervene and have the Israelites do specific things for the walls to come down so they could conquer. Now, it's important to know a little bit of history in this. So why did Jericho have such big walls? Well, the verse says it's because of the children of Israel. So if you go to Deuteronomy 20, it talks about this. It says, verse 16, but the cities of the people that Jehovah thy God hath given thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, and all the other ites that go through here, as Jehovah thy God hath commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations which they have done unto their gods, so that you would sin against Jehovah your God. So what he's saying here is go in and destroy everything, everyone that lives in this country, so that you won't intermarry with them or mingle with them, and they corrupt you and teach you to do the sin that they do. That's the logic here, is God wanted Israel, when it went into the promised land, to take out the people as they were able. So as they could conquer them one by one, they did. So the people of Jericho probably heard about this conquest of the Israelites coming in, just conquering colony after colony. And they probably got a little nervous and said, hey, let's build the biggest, strongest, greatest walls in the world, right? And they did. So what ended up happening is God told them a specific way to bring the walls down by putting the people in a specific order. And if you read the story, they marched around the walls and the walls came down and they were able to conquer the people. So it's not as important to realize that they conquered the people as to know that the Jericho was a city that they got scared of people coming to take over, and so they built a wall to protect themselves. So that's a good point. You build a wall to protect yourselves from outsiders. All right? Proverbs 25, chapter 28, says, he that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. This is actually talking about controlling yourself, self-policing, you know, controlling your emotions and behaviors. We wouldn't need so many laws, walls. We wouldn't need weapons to defend ourselves if people would control their spirit and follow the things of God. But that's never, ever happened ever in history. There's always been people that are self-centered, want what they want, and they go try to take it from other people. And that's wrong. So mankind needs to learn to control his own heart and actions, or he is considered broken and weak. That's the way God sees it. Control yourself or you're weak, you know? Likewise, we must control our country. You know, if we don't stand and do what's right in our country, other nations are going to look at us as broken and weak. We are responsible for who enters our country. We should give people an incentive to come, and the people that meet the criteria that we set should come and have citizenship. Not anybody that wants to. It's very important. We protect ourselves because there's a lot of terrorists out there and they want to come in and destroy us. It's up to us. Build the wall. Thank you very much.